Well, I think Trump is Mr. True to his word, but let me just say, I think things are way too far gone that one guy's not going to be able to do nothing about it, tell you the truth. It's going to be good that he's in here, but he's probably going to be the fall guy that's going to be taking the blame for everything falling apart. And actually, that actually is the way things will work out, where maybe it'll be best if the government defaults, where maybe that's what's going to needs to be straightened things out. I want to go over a couple old quotes because basically this is really what the problem is. We got brainwashing of the whole population. I look at the major media a lot of times, and I could see a lot of different things. I could see why a lot of younger people and millennials are brainwashed against Trump, like a lot of them, not everybody, but I could see why, because of what's emphasized on the major media. But I really don't like the idea of having one guy try to fix everything. I think people just need to do the things on their own. But this quote from Karl Marx pretty much says it all. The education of all children from the moment that they can get along without a mother's care shall be in state institutions at state expense. And what you see today is massive amounts of social programs, one way or the other. A lot of times you just call it school education. It don't matter if it's in New York, New Jersey, it's down south, it's everywhere. Government's got their hands in everything. Um, Whether they call it DIFUS in New Jersey or Department of Children and Families in Florida, government has their hands in everything. And that's Karl Marx policy to the max. And that's basically what your re-education camps are. Now, back in 1948, after the defeat of the Nazis, we started to see another problem with, what do you call it, communism, right? When the Soviet Union took over the Eastern Bloc nations. Now, it's always been like the cliche, the East has one philosophy and the West has another philosophy. Actually, I want to get to something early on here. It's somewhat, it is religious, I guess, but it's nothing really out of the Bible. It's the message of Fatima. When Mary appeared to the three children on October 13th, 1917, and 30 or 40, 50,000 people also saw the miracle of the sun at that time. Well, one of the things she said that Russia would spread its errors throughout the world, which they're probably talking communism, but what we got going on in the United States, which we label as capitalism, it's communism left and right. Things today, even unheard of in 1970, are commonplace today. It's ludicrous what's going on. But here you can see like the ground upswelling even back in 1948, where Democratic Strom Thurmond, the states' rights Democratic candidate, actually won some of the states like South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, actually North Florida, North Georgia, parts of Tennessee, you name it, right? But the deal is where, let me just, I don't know what you want to use the word, communist, whatever, they're winning. It's really through propaganda and brainwashing. And you notice that even on, especially Facebook and Twitter, they don't like anybody coming out with, going against the freaking major media spiel. YouTube, more or less, is pretty much still open and free, but, you can only say so much. But basically, this is the deal. Just like a page right out of Karl Marx, the U.S. Department of Education, no child left unbrainwashed, right? And that's 99% of the problem. That's it right there. I mean, we can elect this one guy that says, he's going to do this and do that. But if most of the population's, like putty in the hands of the elitists, what the hell good is that going to do, right? That's 99% of the problem. Back in the old days, it was like Americans don't patronize the Reds. You can drive the Reds. You can drive the Reds out of television, radio, and Hollywood. Now, this is one thing I like about YouTube, at least, and I know YouTube is not totally open forum, but it is far more an open forum than Facebook. Zuckerberg is a jerk, man. This guy is like, they got the freaking political correctness police on there left and right. But this is one of the reasons I stick it out with YouTube because it's it's something I realize that I'm more of a thorn in the side of the establishment by being on YouTube, and I don't like playing the freaking conspiracy angles like the way the alternative media does often because they're basically so many of those people are actually disinformation agents. But really, what's been true for many decades now is still true today, and it does look like the Reds have won. The Reds, the communists, whatever. And it does go back to that message from Fatima that Russia would spread its errors throughout the world. Now, today, it almost looks like Russia is moving more towards capitalism and the United States is moving more towards communism, despite the winning of Trump. And actually, that's been a globalist ideal. Like the United States was supposed to go more towards the communist way, and Russia was supposed to go more towards the capitalist way. That's been in the plans that way for decades, actually, believe it or not. Um, but looking back, they call this guy, Senator Joe McCarthy, some kind of radical accuser of all these things that weren't true. Well, the guy turned out he was 100% right. That sounds like an ultra conservative thing, but it's not an ultra conservative thing because it's just an absolute correct thing. It's the truth. Hello, my name is Joe McCarthy, Senator, and I'm here to say I told you so. And hey, he told us. And the major media attacked the crap out of him. And you look at really where most of the problems are coming from is Hollywood, but it doesn't necessarily have to come from Hollywood. Now it's like you got the controlled internet. You got Facebook under Zuckerberg with his thought police out there not making sure certain accounts can't say certain things. Twitter's doing the same thing. Actually, I think the only one that's really relatively free and open is YouTube. I don't think there is any ones out there that are large that are open and free. Not at all. Now, I got to say this: Putin. I don't consider him a communist or anything like that, but I could see where he might be part of the message of Fatima. Not to say that. Well, let me say this: I'm aware that this Putin guy wants to restore the former borders of the Russian Federation. He's not happy with the fact that Russia's got a lot smaller, and I also know that the United States is actually looking to take over Russia if Russia falls apart due to an economic implosion like what happened in the 1990s. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think the economic implosion is going to be over here in the West, to tell you the truth, because we're basically we are pursuing failed communist type policies, where the government runs the family life, the government runs the social media, basically in a lot of ways with what you could say and what you can't say through big corporations like Facebook. I want to hammer the crap out of that place because I can't stand Facebook, to tell you the truth. That's why I won't have a Facebook account ever, unless they get rid of Zuckerberg. But Putin, let me say, I know he's not Santa Claus, but he's not really trying. He's not going to start World War III on purpose and be this evil guy. But I think he's going to be antagonized into it. I can see the writing on the wall. Despite what Trump is trying to do, you can see the way the major media is right now. That Trump's the guy that's in with the Russia, and I'm like, yeah, right. And, he's just trying to deal with Putin. That's all fine. It's fine by me. But I don't think it's gonna work out because the bigger forces out there are the money that's behind the major media. Trump's one guy. Plus, like I said, we've had decades long of basically re-education camps, if you want to call it, at government schools. The baby boomer generation, I know I'm part of that, but I wasn't brainwashed into their garbage because I went into exclusive schools. I didn't go to public education. And actually, the Fordham University, former university professors that were there, they told me a lot about what you call the alternative history that's true history that is not even that well known on the internet today, and I knew this way back in the early 1970s. So before a lot of this stuff was even in print, because I learned it from some of the best. And, it wasn't the classroom textbook garbage that people learn in public school. I learned the real stuff way back when. But Putin is not going to knuckle under to the whims of what the major media and the real money powers in this country want to do. And if they push him to the wall too much, he's going to react, which I don't blame him. But that's going to be the message of Fatima fulfilling itself, that Russia, not blaming Putin or blaming Russia, but Russia, it's actually us committing sins against the Lord, that Russia would be the instrument that would chastise mankind for its sins. And you can see a lot of this going on in policies that are going on today in the government. But I think that, people that are basically independent may be relatively unaffected by this. I think the people in the major cities are going to get it. People along the coastline, people in the major cities, anywhere there's like a lot of people. That's really because you don't have, the support structures there to sustain any kind of interruption of food, water, services, because everything's just in time delivery. Now, if you're out in the boonies someplace or have semi in the country, you probably be okay for quite a bit better than at least the people in the cities. So I don't think it's the end of the world, but it could be a major problem for the heavier metropolitan areas in this country. Actually, the message of Fatima states that nations would disappear. I don't know, man, but it's like that's the one religious thing I actually think is correct, because it's the miracle of the sun was seen by between 30,000 and 50,000 people. I don't know the exact estimates of the crowd, but if you want some proof, if they're telling you there's going to be a miracle and it happened and a lot of people were disbelievers, well, if you don't want to believe it, fine, but I don't see how they could have faked that. No way in hell, right? Too many people saw it. But I got to remind people, say the nation disappears, right? I don't want to joke about that, but at one point in time, our nation was the Indian or the American Indian Native nations, or the American Native Indian nations. They disappeared, right? It's like, and they didn't completely disappear either, too. But the thing is, nothing really. What will probably disappear is the political structure. And, maybe that's a damn good thing, because the entrenched powers that are trying to guide us down the wrong path, they got all the levers of controls at their disposal to educate people the wrong way, force people to do things that against their will or say things. Like, in other words, you really got, I'll pick on Zuckerberg again, man. I love picking on this jerk, man. I don't like that guy. He's, if you look at Facebook, so many things you can't say on Facebook. It's ridiculous, right? That's part of the controls. The other thing is, the upbringing of society, or education of society, the way the new generations. It's all going through government brainwashing camps. So if the United States basically fell apart and it morphed into a bunch of smaller communities, well, it might be a better thing. That's one way to look at it. But I think the people in the major cities they might get it, man. I think that might be the problem. But the thing is with the major cities is like, that's a lot where the corruption is, and that's actually where the money powers are that are guiding all these policies. So, I know a lot of people thinking like, yeah, Trump's in charge, he's going to straighten it out. I don't know about that, man. And like I says, I am neither. I'm 100% aware of what really Putin is about, pretty much, right? I mean, the guy is not Mr. Nice Guy, but then he's reasonable. He's reasonable. He's not going to start World War III on his own for no reason, but he might be pushed into it. That's something. He's a reasonable guy. He's a reasonable, rational guy. He does have an ambition to restore the former borders of, Russia the way they were in East Europe. He does have that. I know that. And that's partly why NATO puts troops over there in these other countries to protect their sovereignty. But you can also see how the whole thing is working out because the corruption in the West, and it's something else that actually the Russians have talked about, um, is going to lead to the dissolution of the West. It's like some people think, we got Trump in there, we got a victory, oh, we got everything straightened out, let's hope he stays in there. And I don't think that's the whole answer. The whole answer actually is we got to reject the major media, we got to reject government, we got to reject what the corporations are trying to push as societal norms, and just be independent all the way. Like I said, I don't. This guy, like, I get aggravated when I think people think that Vladimir Putin is the nicest guy in the world, and he's trying to save the world from the New World Order. He's not. He's not exactly doing that. Okay, that's for sure. But on the other side of it, he is a very, very rational person. He's not. He's not like, I don't know, the guy from North Korea or something. You know what I mean? Not by any stretch of the imagination. Um, but he is somebody that may be used. I'll say this in a religious sense. He may be used by God as the instrument to chastise mankind for its sins. Like Russia, I think that's going to happen, and I can see the writing on the wall because actually all these new ideas that have come out since the 1950s or even since the 1970s that are actually against, not just societal traditions but against human nature, they're part of, I don't know what you might want to call it, the red menace. It's like the breakdown of society, because the core element of structure of society, it's like you got the family is based upon one thing, and then that from there becomes the community, from there becomes the state, and from the state government, and from there becomes the federal government. Well, if you break down, it's almost like the human body. If you break down individual cells in the human body, at one point in time, the human body is cancerous or it dies. That's basically what communism is in a lot of ways. And not saying it's from Russia per se, because it was planted in Russia by the wealthy in the West. But the fact that Trump is in office right now is not changing what people think in this country. It's like either you're for him or you're against him. And no one leader is going to be able to fix everything. No way in hell. There's going to have to be a broad awakening. And I think the broad awakening is just going to come from punishment, wrath by God. And then the wrath by God that's actually going to be coming against the United States it's not like I'm saying it's Russia's doing the crime here. I'm just saying the message of Fatima states that Russia would be the instrument that would chastise mankind for its sins. And if you can't see that there's a lot of sinning it gets offending the Lord or God in the United States, well, you're pretty much blind to it because things are not changing for the better. No way. And I'm not saying anything specific because even that'll probably go against YouTube policies but you could see you could see that the millennials, I don't even want to blame them because there's nothing innately wrong with the millennials, but they don't know how to do a lot of things that people knew how to do back in the 1950s, that to be more independent and survive. But the millennials basically are not only the product of the government schools, but they're also the product of the upbringings by the baby boomers, who themselves were pretty damn lame compared to the generation before them. So America has lost a lot of its toughness. And, it's pretty interesting that you would see back in 1948, you think we had a revolution today with Trump. 1948, there was actually a states' rights party, states' rights Democratic Party, that actually was able to get obtain some electoral votes. Now tell me, that's something in itself, right? And really, if you want to battle the ill effects of communism, um, you know, which really a lot of it comes from Washington D.C. I mean, it's not. It's great you got a guy in there that's going to do executive orders and stop this and stop that, but the way to really effectively battle centralized government, which is getting overreaching its bounds, is to have more power in the states, or not have the central power have that power in the first place, and maybe not even the states have that power, maybe just directly in the hands of the people. So I think that, despite the fact that Trump won the election, I think Karl Marx has won the war. And we're going to see the wrath of God for this. Like, that was there's like several parts of the message of Fatima. I just got to go over real quick. One was that Russia would spread its errors throughout the world, which is communism. Not to blame it on Russian people, but the upper echelon. I know Putin's not a communist, okay? The other thing was that Russia would be used by the Lord or God to chastise mankind for its sins. And that, seeing what's going on today, I could see why, if you're looking at what traditional religious norms were, it's going against the will of God big time, right? And number three, actually, is a hidden part to it that the Catholic Church won't admit, but anybody who's astute can read right between the lines. They say that the faith will be preserved in Portugal, specifically, which implies that the faith is not going to be preserved everywhere else. And also, there's a lot of implications in the message of Fatima that the Catholic Church itself is going to be undermined, which you can already see it has been for quite some time now, and it's gotten a lot worse. And it's not till there's a great upheaval and a great destruction of a lot of mankind that it's going to get straightened out. Now, it's not a doom and gloom video, but I think this is coming up, man. I think it's coming up. So, I know for the people out there that say Trump won, and I think Trump is legit, but I just don't think one guy can stop the ill effects of Karl Marxism that's been going on for umpteen decades, and all the brainwashing and the continuing brainwashing that's been going on for many years. And I could see a lot of what's still being said in the major media and even on the social media against Trump, and how they use the sound bites from what he said to influence the audience. And I'm realizing that's why a lot of the people think a certain way. They're only told a tiny snippet of what's going on. So I think the way things are actually going to be straightened out is going to be some bad stuff coming up. So anyway, one reason I'm going to be getting the hell out of maybe the south here and probably get up in the mountains maybe, but either way, with 601 half dozen another, nothing's really safe no matter where the hell you are. But I know one thing, I wouldn't want to be in any major metropolitan area like New York City, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Detroit, Chicago, Dallas, or Boston, or Atlanta, or Miami. Hanging it up. I wouldn't want to be around any of those places, that's for sure. So anyway, over and out.